Recently on this channel, we built what we called a bleeding edge machine. Who knows how long that's going to last, but at the time, it was a Be Quiet case with a Z790 motherboard from MSI. It had an Intel 13900K processor, 32 gigs of DDR5 from Trident at 6000 megatextures, a Venom 8 NVMe drive running 7000 megs per second, and an RTX 4090 from NVIDIA. To power everything, we used a Be Quiet 1500 watt power supply. Well, there's one problem with all of that. Backing it up. I live in Texas, and our power supply is garbage. So there's no way that I can have that machine plugged into the wall for any length of time without having some sort of backup and protection. To that end, I reached out to Tripp-Lite. There are a lot of companies out there that will happily sell you a backup system in the 750 to 1000 watt power range. The problem is that there are very few that actually go up to 1500. Now, some of those are from companies you've heard of, but entirely too many of them are from what amounts to literally just a scramble of letters. Now, when I look at warranty and I think about what could possibly happen, especially with the cost of a system that we just built, there's no way that I'm going to put that in the hands of somebody that I can't trust. Now, overbuilt PCs aren't the only place that you're going to use a system like this. If you look at your own situation, you may be sitting and watching this from your couch. Perhaps you're watching this on an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5. Maybe you managed to pick up a PSVR 2. Maybe you've got a Switch. Maybe you've got a PC downstairs, or maybe you have all of it. Add in a receiver, add in a high-end TV. You may be drawing a lot more power than you think. Also, in the day and age when patches are not getting any smaller, we tend to leave our systems on. So that means that they're all just humming along, drawing power 24/7, 365. With my own use case defined, I took a look at Tripp-Lite's lineup and I found one that was aimed at gamers. Now, how do you aim a battery at gamers? Well, you stick RGB lights on it for one, but certainly there's more to it than that. So without further ado, how about we open this up and see if that's just a gimmick or if there actually is something interesting here. Now, if you've watched enough videos with me, you know that I most often take the manual and throw it away because most of the time the manuals are just useless. That's not the case here. If you could measure my pulse, it's through the roof right now because I unfortunately suffered a really bad electrical shock when I was a kid. In fact, all of this is reconstructive surgery. I had a capacitor literally shred that side of my face. So working on electronics, I'm fine. Working on batteries is a little nerve-wracking for me. So I damn sure read the manual, and I encourage you to as well. So there's some instructions on safety around, dumb stuff. Don't plug the plug into itself. I don't know how that would work. It's certainly not going to charge itself. But also don't run it when it's sitting in water. Don't plug life-saving equipment into it. If you need to be told these things, perhaps you probably shouldn't open one of these up. But there is a step inside this that we're gonna have to do. These don't ship connected. So inside here, we're gonna expose the battery and we're gonna have to hook up the leads. So that's the next step once I read all the instructions. And I will definitely read all of them. So I'll be right back. The first thing it says to do is to remove this tab here. So we're gonna do that. And who knows, maybe that's all I need to do. It would be nice. I think that's it. Okay. Wow, all right. So unless I need to replace the battery, I actually don't need to open this. So I'm already in love with this thing above any other UPS system I've ever put my hands on because I don't have to open it. There will be a moment somewhere in the future, long past the 3-year warranty, when I will have to replace the battery, but it's just as likely that I'll just replace the entire system. I'm literally that nervous about opening these things. Maybe I'm a wuss, whatever. I don't care, call me names. Once you've been burned as badly as I have, you tend to get a little nervous around these things. So the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna charge this thing up and I'll come back a little bit later and we'll talk about the features, including probably one of the coolest ones, a detachable LCD. Overcoming my fear is probably a big part of this as well, so I'm gonna do something a little bit different. Rather than just popping away, I am actually gonna open this and show you what the inside of the case looks like. To get to the battery, you remove these two screws in the front of the system. That's gonna be fun to find on my carpet. All right, so here we can see the positive and negative leads. And yeah, it looks like all I had to do is pull that small lead out, that small little strip to get everything working. This right here is so you can pull the battery out safely. That's literally a handle to dislodge it. Changing these things out is actually fairly simple. We have to dislodge the connector to the front of the case. And in this case, there's just a positive and a negative to disconnect. They have this little quick disconnect right there. So they did make it as simple as possible, should you need to swap this out. As I mentioned, this does have a 3-year warranty, and if anything goes wrong with this, I'm absolutely going to avail myself of it. You won't see me pulling this battery out. Welcome back. You may have noticed that there's now 2 of them. Well, unfortunately, I had a situation. After the video that you just saw, I powered the device for a couple of days and I went back to do my testing, and unfortunately the screen wouldn't work. And I wasn't sure why. I wasn't getting any sort of display, and I was getting red lines running up and down this side here, and I wasn't sure quite what to do. Now, I'm quite certain I could have called my rep and said, hey, I have an issue, please swap out the unit. And I'm quite certain he'd have done that, no problem. But that doesn't really show what your situation might be like. So instead, I didn't identify myself as press, and I called up Tripp-Lite and I said, hey, I have this situation. Can you help? Within 3 minutes, I had an extraordinarily helpful person who walked me through a number of steps to diagnose the issue. We cracked open the battery, we made sure that that was good. We took a look at the screen, we took a look at the connectors, and that's where the problem lies. So this is a new unit, but far from Tripp-Lite or Eaton's first run at UPSs. They make millions of these a year. They're huge in the commercial space, but this is a new system. So this interface that you'll see in just a moment here is a micro USB, and for whatever reason, it was having trouble interfacing with this portion of the device. In fact, if I were to power this up and put this good screen on it, it would throw an error code, which is another good reason for having a screen. So my experience was, we went through the troubleshooting steps, very quickly identified what the issue was, and I had a new unit in my hands in 5 days. That's amazing, especially given that this had to move UPS ground. It's rather heavy. So again, a wonderful experience with warranty issues. It's very easy to just pretend like this didn't happen, and magically I've got a system that you didn't see the swap, but I don't think that would be very fair to you. So here we are, and again, it was a great experience. So good on you, Tripp-Lite. Now, because of how all this happened, I do have an opportunity to shoot this from a completely different angle. Because I know this unit is dead, I'm going to turn it on its face and use that to demonstrate the bottom half of the device. So you have 2 different really portions of the UPS. You have this side that has controlled by master and UPS and surge. You have this one that says master plus UPS and surge. And then you have all of these that say surge only. So not every device that you plug in needs to be backed up. For instance, you might want your router to stay up. You'll probably definitely want that so you can save whatever you're doing online. You want your computer to be up. You'll need at least a monitor, but maybe not all of your monitors. So as you prioritize what sort of units you need up to be able to safely shut down, that's what's going to inform where you put your power plugs. This master plus UPS and surge is directly tied to this USB port. We have this USB cable. This isn't for decoration. This connects directly to my PC with some software that's included, thank you. The master plus UPS port that goes to the PC can be safely shut down. It's going to interface and say, hey, I've lost power to the commercial power systems. I'm on backup power. Please transfer over to the software that I need to shut down. And it's going to do that gracefully rather than just yanking the plug. It's the whole purpose of a UPS is to gracefully shut that down. So it's going to gracefully shut down your PC, and then that's going to allow these to say, okay, the PC's down, I can power down now. These are surge only. They're going to go down immediately. So that's for things like, a desk lamp. I don't really care about a desk lamp, whether it's going to stay live or not. Once it's down, that's fine. It's not going to affect any data or cause me any problems. There's 2 more ports here, and realistically, I have actually had a PC that, I mean, this is way back when I was in the military. It's been a minute, but I did have Ethernet port actually fry my motherboard. So this is taking the RJ45 connector into the UPS and back out. So you can really run this kind of inline to your connectivity to the internet and ensure that there's no additional way for power to surge into your system. I highly recommend you use this, having gone through losing an entire PC because of that. Now we're going to get into what the capabilities of a 1500 VA 900 watt UPS system are, but suffice it to say that all this really is a gas tank. You have a certain amount of time that you can run on battery power before the whole system will shut down. Now, what if you need a little bit more power than what this can provide? Well, the last stop on the back of this device is this panel up here. We're going to go ahead and remove these screws and I'll show you. Inside this panel, you have an optional secondary battery. Now, this secondary battery looks very much like this. It just doesn't have the fancy screen on the front, and it doesn't have all of these plugs on the back, if I remember correctly. I don't have one to demonstrate for you, unfortunately, but if you do have one and you have a need, it would connect here. It's simply 2 plugs and fire the system up. I'm sure there's probably some configuration between the 2, but ultimately it's probably going to double your time. So why don't we get into that? In just a moment, I'm going to put up a list of common power usage for consoles and PCs, and then we'll talk about how much time that really gives you. Now, obviously there is a fan on this device, so I want to be able to check just how loud that fan really is. Is it going to be disruptive while this thing's running next to your system? Now, obviously that's going to depend on where your system lives. If you've got it sitting right next to your head on your desk, then yeah, this is probably going to make a little bit of noise, but how much? So me talking at this distance is between 70 and 80. The norm of this room is around 48. So now let's check the back of the fan. I have it set to hold, and as you can see there, it's 72.2. So it's little more than a speaking voice. In fact, oh, it just moved. Sorry about that. 72.2 was the reading, and that's a little more than a speaking voice. So is it loud? No, not even close. Now, I mentioned something earlier. This device is 1500 volt amps and 900 watts. Now, you may have been thinking, hold on, doesn't this do 1500 watts of power backup? No. 1500 VA is 900 watts. You can get larger capacities, and you might be thinking, oh my God, I just got an RTX 4090, and that 4090 Ti is coming out, and I'm gonna have that, and it's gonna use more and more power, and you might be thinking that you need a much bigger UPS than this. You don't. So what I'm gonna do now, right here, I'm going to show you a list of common power usage, including the RTX 4090. Now, these are measured at peak, but you can imagine that there's something inside that range. So how much time are you going to get with a realistic load? Well, I don't know. I can't actually tell you that. It really depends on how close you are to midpoint, low, high. Anything in that range can drastically change the amount of power used. And if it's constant or if it's up and down, that's going to drastically change the amount of time you have left as well. Again, realistically, you're never going to run this thing at full capacity. It's just not realistic to do so, but that doesn't mean that you don't need it. Having the extra capacity means that this thing's not running full tilt hot all the time, and it gives you headroom in case you do have spikes. There are moments, especially during video rendering, like when I render this video, that I'll be using a significant amount of power. And during those moments, the last thing I want, especially on like a 2-hour render, is to have the Texas power grid, which you saw how wonderful that is earlier, cause me a problem where I have to re-render an entire video. So yeah, I absolutely want to back up as much power as I can for as long as I can. And like I showed, if it's not enough time, there's always a spare battery. So how does any of this make this a gaming device? I mean, you're not going to game on it, obviously, What they're talking about mostly is that it's for backing up gaming devices. I do want to point something out that just happened though. If I were to pull out the measuring device for sound again, this is silent. It is now completely charged, and as such, that fan's turned off completely. So unless I put a significant amount of load on this, it's not going to make any more racket. So take what I showed you for sound as peaks, and it just kicked up again, peak sound. So let's go back to this. So this is one of the things that makes it almost a gaming device. So you've got these lights down the side here and running up and down the front of the device. What these are indicators of load. And it can also show, as we saw with the failed unit, an error message here. And I can tell you that I have other devices in my home that can back up my power. And to figure out what's going on with them, I have to basically get on my hands and knees, crawl underneath my desk, and look at the screen that's on the device. It's a giant pain in the butt. Sometimes I'll have them scream for some reason. Texas Power Grid, being Texas, does its Texas thing. It screams, I have to go look and see what happened. With this, I can take this off of the front of the device and I can see whatever happened, and I can leave this on my desk for a significant amount of time. As such, it also has lights on it, so when it's connected here, it'll show the amount of load. I'm gonna fire up some devices on this in just a moment and show you that. But when they say gaming, they're really more focused on the fact that it's built for gamers and it's built to withstand the amount of power that we might use with a high-end PC. Consoles aren't going to drain nearly as much power as we saw on the list, but that's the tie-in, that's the gaming part. I've pulled out a couple of devices. I have a Razer Blade 16 equipped with an RTX 4090. I have the Monolith MTM 100. These are 100 watt speakers. And I'm also going to power this camera off of the back of the Tripp-Lite. And I've also installed the Power Alert software. I'm gonna go ahead and show you what I'm looking at here. So one of the things you'll notice is that there's no load on the device whatsoever right now. Absolutely none. But there's also this alert up here in the corner. And it says, output is currently off. So to fix that, we're going to come in here to the events and actions. And you can see that this is throwing a bunch of different alerts as it goes through its tests. But most importantly, it is currently set to main load is turned off, which means that the device is not powered anything right now. In fact, I have the laptop plugged into the main, the master plus UPS and surge, but as you can see over here in the corner, we're still running on battery. Now, why is that? Well, you got to turn it on. So we're going to come over here to main load, and it's the effect flipping that cartoon switch, and you should hear this scream bloody murder, and we should see the lights come on, which we do. Now I did say it was kind of not really gaming when I mentioned the lights, but I did go ahead and configure these lights to do different things. There are a number of lights that you can adjust. You can use this detachable screen, but I do highly recommend actually just coming into the dashboard here and messing with the lighting in this option up here where it says LED configuration. So you can go in here and make adjustments, and it's a lot easier. So I recommend that over trying to do it with this. It's a lot of push button, push button, push button, push button, and that's kind of annoying. But what we do see already, we see 14% utilization just off of plugging in the Razer Blade, and it does show that it is now plugged in. So it's powering the device as it should, and on the bottom of the Tripp-Lite, we can see that strip is green, which is what I configured to say we're below a certain threshold for utilization. You can also see up here in the corner where it says that we're at about 80% power. So this is still charging, where I pulled it out of the box earlier today. But yeah, we're at 80% power based off of its current charge and the current load. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to flip over to F1 2022. This is one of our most frequently used tests, and we're going to run benchmarks. First, I'm going to change this to windowed so I can show the the screen next to our load calculations. So I've done that. We're going to go into benchmark. We're going to run Bahrain, and I'm going to set it to loop and just let it run. We're going to kind of slide this out of the way and move this window so we can see. We should see our utilization start to climb. Yep, we're already at 20% or 28% utilization here. You can go in here and set thresholds to have it scream bloody murder if things go over a certain utilization, but right now we're more interested in just showing that the output voltage is nice and clear, and we see that input voltage coming down to match. The benchmark should be just about loaded here. Oh, I'm tabbed out of it. There we go. All right. That does minimize if I don't have it actively on the screen. That's very annoying. Maybe I can slide this out of the way just slightly. There we go. So we do see we're up at 27% utilization, and we're starting to see the graph begin to move. Now, one of the things I should point out, the other reason that you would want to own a device like this is not just battery backup. If you're thinking about it for battery backup, there are many ways to accomplish that same task. The shutdown is also great. Another thing that can be done with scripts in Windows. It's not exactly why I would personally want this. Again, I've talked about this time and time again, but I live in Texas. Our power is very unreliable. So having the backup is good, but having clean power is far more important. When you see that this device is listed as a clean Sine or clear Sine, there's a number of ways that you see that listed. What that means is power comes in cycles. It kind of ebbs and flows like a sine wave. And what you want is clean power. You want power that is consistent. When you have huge spikes and jerkiness, that can basically cause this kind of slamming effect on your devices. And as you might imagine, that's not healthy for any device. So a device like this will also condition the power. Anything that's coming off of the back of this has gone through that battery to prevent that kind of jerkiness. The battery actually takes that along with the electronics, and it takes that slamming effect and it smooths it out. So what comes out of the back of this is clean. So again, for a place like Texas, a must-have. I have something like this in every single room. Now, in the past, I've received some very fair criticism. It's true, I don't have the equipment to be able to test how many nanoseconds it takes for this to switch over from commercial power to battery power, but I tested it the best way that I know how, which is the real world. I simply unplugged it. That's what you'll face in the real world, and to my eyes, it was instantaneous, and to every device that was connected, including a very finicky camera, it was instantaneous there too. So, in my book, that's almost as good as lab testing. I don't know, maybe you disagree, but for me, when it works, it works. The last thing to talk about, as always, is the price. At the time of recording, this is going for $281 on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. And it comes with a 3-year warranty and a $250,000 insurance policy. So if anything were to happen to a device that's connected to it, you know that you've got that covered. Now, it's about the same price as what you'd get from a competitor, but obviously I can configure this to look exactly like the rest of my system. It's currently decked out, my system is currently decked out in Gaming Trend Blue, as is my UPS. Now, I think about the other devices that I've reviewed in the past, and sure, they might have some colors on them, but none of them have this. I think about where my system is positioned, and I think about the idea of crawling on my hands and knees to go figure out what my loads are and how much power I'm using, and just the kind of the peace of mind of having this visible, and it's just not a thing. So here, I can set this on my desk and it'll run for a week, no problem. I throw it back on here and it'll charge, and I'm off to the races. I have some faith in the warranty now that I've actually used it. I do wish that it was closer to 5. You see that on kind of the 2000 and above, more the commercial UPSs, but at least I know that I can count on this to last for at least 3 years, and I don't have to replace the entire system. It's actually quite easy to replace the battery, so do with that what you will. I'm Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for GamingTrend.com. I know you guys have given me grief for previous UPS reviews that I've done. Hopefully I did a better job this time. Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you again very soon.